This story took place in a Turkish city. An elderly man lived there. His name was Mehmet Ilham. He was very fond of animals and took long walks in the evenings. One evening, after another walk in the city, Mehmet brought home a dog. He took his new pet in to live with him. He named him Caesar after the great Egyptian conqueror because Caesar won his heart. Caesar was a very docile dog, obediently followed every command, happily accepted treats from his owner, and usually behaved very quietly. Mehmet doted on his pet and spent a lot of time with him. Together they went for long walks and played fetch. But one morning, Mehmet did not leave his room. Caesar barked, happily waiting for his owner, but Mehmet was seriously ill and could not find the strength to go out to his friend to go for a walk together. Caesar whimpered behind the door for a very long time, trying to call his owner, but the man simply did not have the physical strength to go out. His health worsened every day. He gradually stopped recognizing his children and loved ones. He refused to eat and began to cease connection with the world. Caesar, all this time, tried not to leave his owner. He was pleased with the fact that he was not kicked out by other residents of the house, but given the opportunity to spend as much time as possible in the room of his beloved owner. It seemed that Mehmet himself felt a little bit better in the company of his four-legged friend. Several weeks passed in this way. Mehmet was fading away more and more every day. Gradually, he stopped eating at all, and his wife and children were seriously worried about the health of their husband and father. Caesar was no longer allowed into the house so as not to disturb his owner. All this time, Caesar waited for the door to open and Mehmet to appear on the threshold with a tasty treat or a stick to fetch. But most of all, Caesar wanted to just see his beloved owner, to sniff and lick his palm, to jump into his arms and stay in his arms. But Mehmet never came. Caesar missed his master so much that he completely refused to eat. The family saw how much the dog was upset, but there was nothing they could do to relieve his grief. Caesar hoped that soon he would see his master, but his dreams were not destined to come true. Mehmet passed away. After the funeral, Mehmet's body was brought home in a coffin so that everyone could say goodbye. No one paid attention to the dog, which did not leave the owner's coffin. He cried, realizing that he would never see his owner again. Mehmet was buried in the city cemetery. Caesar sat on his grave even when everyone else had dispersed. He had nowhere to go. He knew that no one else was waiting for him at home. So the dog sat on Mehmet's grave for several days, until one morning Mehmet's son Ali came. He saw the dog and took pity on him. He called the dog to come with him, and Caesar followed him as Ali smelled much like his father. Ali brought the dog into his house. Caesar was very quiet, ate very little, and generally tried not to attract too much attention to himself. After a while, Ali noticed that Caesar regularly left home at a certain time and then returned. The man decided to follow the dog to find out where he went. Ali followed Caesar across the city. The dog knew exactly where he was going. He walked with a very confident gait, not being distracted by sounds or smells. Already halfway through the journey, Ali guessed where Caesar was going. He walked straight towards the cemetery where Mehmet was buried. Having arrived at the owner's grave, the dog sat down near the tombstone and sat there in silence for a very long time. The cemetery workers told Ali that the dog came here every day, sat near the grave for several hours, and then left. Ali could not believe it. He could not believe that a dog could visit his master so faithfully every day, even after his death. On that day, he firmly decided to give the dog as much affection and love as possible, which he lost with the death of his father. This dog showed him how much one can be devoted to someone they love very much. He showed Ali how much one can be attached to a person and how hard it is to say goodbye to the person whom you love with all your soul. Since then, Caesar has become a full-fledged member of Ali's family. Gradually, Caesar fell in love with Ali, recognized him and his family as his own. But despite this, until the very end of the dog's life, Caesar continued going to Mehmet's grave every day, sitting there for hours and remembering those beautiful days when he was his master. Such a story about the true devotion and love of the faithful dog Caesar and his master Mehmet shows us that there is a place in the world for true friendship, love, and affection. Even after the death of his owner, the dog remained faithful to him and regularly visited him daily at the place of his burial. Yes, he stayed in the new family of Mehmet's son Ali, but he did not cease to be faithful to his first beloved owner. Share in the comments, have you ever experienced such stories of true devotion in your life as Caesar was devoted to his owner, Mehmet?